yourself.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very honored that I am actually printed on the agenda for today's council, that before it was an oral invite, so that's kind of a big deal for me, so thank you. Yes, most of you have seen me before, but for those that don't, at the very first council meeting that actually Tracy got me involved in, so thank you very much, it's awesome to see you. This is going to be sort of like a three-course meal of what I'm going to deliver. To refresh your memories, I am a 4-time brain injury survivor, and I'm going to give you a Cliff Note, in-depth description of how what those car crashes were, because I am cognitively impaired. I am not obviously physically impaired. Yes, during some of my car crashes, I was injured physically. I have long since recovered from them. I still have balance issues, but they're nothing compared to my cognitive deficits. So the first one happened when I was on the cusp of adulthood at 19. I was on a dirt road. I had 2 other people in the car with me. None of us were wearing our seatbelts, which is the bane of a stupid mistake that I have never repeated again. But 11 o'clock at night on a dirt road with no street lights, very twisty and turny. I lost control of the car, scraped against a tree, further lost control of the car, went over an embankment. I thought my brain at the time was telling my foot to hit the brake pedal. The brain at that point, I found out later, disconnects. When there's a trauma like that, all brain communication disconnects when there's a trauma. So my foot never hit the brake pedal. I went over the embankment, and the only thing that stopped the car was a tree. The car hit the tree like that, and because I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, I went through the windshield, the propulsion of the speed of the car. My chest hit the bony steering wheel, and I was propelled through the windshield. My head hit the trunk, and then I bounced back. I found out later with my OT at Sunnyview that was called a contracoup. Now, what I may say may be out of order, but that's what brain injury is all about there, folks. So, the literal fact that traumatic brain injury, that the brain is invisible to our sight. It's encased inside of our head. We don't see it. That it is a jelly. It's amazing the way that God made it, that it's a jelly with all these indents in it that have enormous controls and communication systems of the way our bodies are made. The inside of our brains are made of bony, sharp material, bone. So that when that jelly brain of ours gets hit from one end to the other, it hits those shards, those neurons, all those little facets that we take for most of us take for granted of our decision making and such. Those neurons, those passageways, and a lot of this Karen Thayer, way back when, some 15 years ago, when I first came home from Baltimore, she's the one that came to my parents' house and myself and spent hours educating us on what this was. Because at 19, the brain, as Peter said, and he's not here to, that much of what Peter was saying, clearly what Dr. Lois was talking about, and a little bit about what Megan was saying, that, and I'm almost losing track of where I just was going with that. Oh, that she was exhausted, or hang on, okay, that the term brain injury wasn't even a concept that we were even familiar with, had no idea. It wasn't in our stream of consciousness of even knowing it existed. So at 19, apart from the drastic physical injuries I had, that going through that windshield, hitting that alone, so that's the first one. The second one, and here's where between 19 and when I was 30, the 4, I have no memory of what ages I was for the middle 2. I know where they are, and the highlight, the second one, I was driving back from Baltimore where I used to live. I was waiting, the highlight was that I started my trip way too late because I was waiting on somebody else. I fell asleep at the wheel. I kept falling asleep 3 times. And the 3rd time was way too long. I overcorrected as I realized I was heading for the median, overcorrected, and ended up spinning several times, and the car crunched underneath a guardrail. Now, the friend who was supposed to have come with me decided the last minute not to. The car, apart from my driver's seat, the rest of the car was mangled. She would not have survived had she come with me. The fact that I swear God had his guardian angels real on speed dials, like, oh boy, here it comes, this is going to be a mess. So I don't know what age I was there. And again, with all that spinning going on, I had vague memories of how that was. The 3rd one was on New Year's Eve in Saratoga Springs. I was working late as a TV commercial producer at the time. And I had the green light as I was going through the intersection. The Yahoo on the other side decided he was going to try to make a left turn. Bam! Head-on collision. The glass went all over the place, and I don't remember now exactly. I remember inching my car off to the side, which I found out I shouldn't have done, but there was clear enough evidence to show that the Yahoo was the one that was in trouble for that. I did not know at the time that the next morning when my dad came and got me, my neck was so stiff. I'd never had such a stiff neck. The whiplash, spent hours in the emergency room and whatnot. So that was number 3. Number 4, I believe I was 31. I was in Baltimore coming down. It just started snowing. The road was very slick, just a little smaller, a thin layer of snow. I was going along carefully. Another car was coming in. He was trying to establish the lane. Well, by the time I came down, he hadn't gotten his lane established yet, and I couldn't stop. The snow was too thin. So we hit, metal scraping the whole thing, and the force of it was so fast that there was a parking meter on the other side of the road, a metal one, of course. The car went right over the top of it. There was a pet store that was across the street that had these big, tall cement steps. The car was propelled up the cement steps and only came to a stop because there was the stone facade of the building that stopped. So, and part of one of the remnants, much later, many years later, was the PTSD. I have severe acute startle reflex. Every time this thing has been flickering, it sends shock waves. When that thing had the high piercing thing, my entire body was ricocheting. It took away from the concentration of who was speaking. Now, it's occurred to me along the way that the acute startle reflex is because every time there was metal against metal, every time my head banged against, all those sounds that the brain protects the body in those extreme emergency crises. And so it's in the subconscious, even though I don't remember it. So I live with that every single day. When Peter was commenting on the fact that after today's, he's going to be flatlined. Well, tell you something. Yesterday I had the fun of going to a meet and greet in LiverLink Resources in Albany. And just trying to get there, that Eileen saved me by redirecting me because I got lost. And as I got lost, I happened to see this building. Went, oh, I bet you this is where it's supposed to take place for today. So that was a little bit of a plus. So I finally found it and had a delightful time getting to see the staff, meeting everybody, and taking photographs, which is what my saving grace of utilizing myself. And by the time I got back, I was simply being in the quiet, the mild conversations that took place in that room. I was wiped out. I had to leave early because I was meeting my new life coach at noontime, and we were doing this massive big meal thing. I could barely stand up because trying to get there at 10 o'clock for the meeting, there was no way even to get breakfast. I could not. I don't get into a functioning mode until about 11 in the morning. And the fact that I'm speaking to you now, and that I'm in the prime of my day, part of my cognitive deficits is the bookends of the day. My word processing is at a high time. My word finding is very laborious. That with all the noise, environments, my social habitat has been, everything that Lois was showcasing, I am that person, okay? The cognitive is what I live in. that it's just as the entire last year of every time I had the honor of speaking at these council meetings, I was wiped out for the next 3 days. Because simply trying the anxiety of trying to find the place for one thing, and then finally having just enough energy to drive back home, because believe it or not, I'm a good driver, despite all the 4 car crashes. I've been able to retain that, which is a form of, I was without a car for about a year because I fell into a deep depression in 2001 of October when my life imploded. My parents came and got me from Baltimore and brought me back home. In February of 2002 was when I finally landed at Sunnyview, and the diagnosis was delivered. I did not take it kindly, folks. And my OT first asked me, so what do you want to do in a month's time? I'm thinking, I don't know freaking know what I'm doing tomorrow. I had a blank slate in front of me. I had no idea who I was anymore during that time. I broke down. I deflated. It's taken a long, you talk about how long rehab takes. It's almost when you're starting over again cognitively to figure out who you are again. It's not a set time because you have to wait for all those regular life experiences to come across to find out, okay, can I do it on my own? If I can't, is the capability of it totally gone? Or is it sort of there and I need help? ILST, folks, hello! And so it's the waiver program that I depend on it with every fiber of my being. That's what my life infrastructure depends on. All this other politicking about long-term managed care, as Colleen and I were acknowledging at the very beginning before everybody got here, with all of the politicking that goes on, I don't normally like to be selfish, but in this case, on behalf of myself and the scores of others that are like me, who may not have the vocal articulation that I have when I'm in the prime like I am now, that when I first came in here, all the straggling noise, especially during the lunch break, I was struggling to be able to focus on whom I was talking to. I was trying to talk to the 3 ladies of Albany, and I had to sit there practically getting Vicky's face to be able to concentrate on what I was trying to say and what she was saying back. That the other gentleman there, cognitive, I mean, if we want to use the veterans coming back, those that do make it back, for one thing, those that are intact physically, for one thing, their cognitive doesn't show up right away. It takes a while, and then it permeates the family. Yes, with my own family, when they finally realized, oh, she's got a brain injury. I have 4 of them, folks. That every single day is a struggle. When I turned myself inside out all last year with the council meetings, it took a toll on me. I am cognitively weary and tired. And I will not give up, though, because who I am and the people I represent, we will not be ignored. Cognitive is here. It's forever. And the money part of it, as somebody was saying, that I was reading a couple different places that the DOH was announcing, oh yes, we're having cognitive training for the assessors. Well, folks, that's a basic tenet of brain injury, folks. That should be a built-in understanding. Oh, you want to be patsy complacent about cognitive awareness? That's what we live with. You can't be complacent if you aren't passionate about taking care of us, about having integrity, follow through. If you aren't wired to want to better our lives because we are disabled, we're not able-minded, then get out of the profession because we cannot afford you. And I don't mean financially. That the emotion I'm exhibiting, I'm traveling to Vermont tomorrow to be with my niece's nephew for a stage production of Guys and Dolls. I'm going to be struggling to video record that. That the trip back home, I'm going to be probably taking the next week off because the effort of doing this, my short-term memory is now almost gone. The cognitive fatigue has been building up like crazy. I lost my CIC back in December. He had to retire. So I've been trying to process this and handle this all on my own. I have a tremendous team around me. However, the emotional component has been practically burying me. I was telling someone that I have been dancing around the depression symptoms. I've been finally the 5th antidepressant I'm finally on. It's basically a Band-Aid because it doesn't cure my depression. It's clinical. I'm not depressed about having a brain injury. It's the clinical depression that I had a learning disability because I was born with birth anoxia. So I was already born with a disadvantage right there. I struggled to get through school and for all those accomplishments. So in addition to having that and the 4 brain injuries on top of it, that I have always been a glass half full kid. That I keep getting nicknamed the sunshine all the time because I purpose to see the good someplace. I purpose to look for the positive. I will refuse to sink down. So having your ears to say policy is, we're not a stock sheet. We're humans. While you're all figuring this stuff out, we are suffering. We are flailing in the meantime. The third point I wanted to bring out was something about ILSTs, if we still get to have them, because my assessment comes up on April 17th. I don't know whether it's a combination of UAS, which I think is absurd to begin with, the fact that they left out cognitive. I'm thinking, who are the nincompoops who did that? That it's absurd. The waiver was already taking care of us. That it's smashing the Hippocratic Oath, a version of that. That I don't know when the 17th rolls around, when my service coordinator comes with me, I can't, that she managed to finagle it so I was safe for this year. I would like to know that my infrastructure, the Save My Clothesline / revise is the advocacy video I made last October. I debuted it at the former council. It's on YouTube. That it's more of a visualization of what I live with. That there was a point 2 years ago where I was in between antidepressants. That for a while there I was doing fine, and then all of a sudden my temperament started to erupt like King Kong. My language, my cursing language went set kind of shockwaves. I had to let everybody know, look, I'm in between medications here. I'm behaving like a different kid because the triggers, I did not know what they were. I would fly off or I would throw things all over the place. I'm thinking, who the hell is this kid? I didn't recognize myself. I finally got the next brand of medication. It took about 2 weeks or so for that, and every time I've been through a medication change, the transition was awful. And so with this one, it's finally, I finally reached a cocktail with the antidepressants, with the blood pressure, with the cholesterol, with the Requip. I have a little tiny mini pharmacy in my kitchen that I take. And Karen and Kim saw me take a mouthful of it today this afternoon. Okay. Thank you for my time.
Tell us your message.
Yes.
Yeah.
I need to know that you need to be committed. I need to see passion. I need to see communication. That with all of this stuff here, there's no transparency. That for myself, when I read the email threads, all I see is this dancing around. There's no direct answer saying, if I don't know the answer, I'll find out. Having basic information of brain injury is paramount. You shouldn't be making any kind of policy changes if you don't know the basics of brain injury. Plain and simple, no excuses. And if you don't have an interest in brain injury, then utilize your skills someplace else because you're not helping us. You're further damaging us. I've been rehearsing this in my head ever since I found out my name was on the agenda, and I'm thinking if someone said we'll put on bullet points, but that would kind of keep...
You're doing...
Yeah.
So,
So,
anything about the UAS here, Marie?
pardon me?
Did you want to say anything about the UAS?
Well, I don't know if the UAS is still in play, and considering all my yiping about the cognitive recognition, that Karen unloaded an earthquake on me with as far as the long-term care, and then the gentleman over there, who, Mr. Neto? Is that you?
Well, that's
The one that
sitting
talked
at
about,
yeah.
the one in the
Wren.
pink, the
Mr. Wren.
coral.
Mr. Wren.
I'm sorry, that with the discussion that all I've heard at the beginning of this session was about wafer, thinking, oh, does that mean that we finally put a squash on the UAS and kicked it in the ass and said you're done because it was a mess to begin with, and why did it come into existence? The Medicare, that is more than I know how to handle. That I need someone you all need to be thorough and want to help us. Be thorough and okay, I'm starting to get spaghetti thought. So thank you for